My name is Connor Woods. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Albuquerque Community Safety Department. Thank you all for being here today. We see several responders, community members. This is really built on community, and so it's great to see so many of you out here today. We will hear from a number of community members and leaders talking about how ACS is reshaping public safety in our city. So please hold your questions to the media. Please hold your questions again to the end. We will have a moment for a Q&A. We begin with Mayor Keller, who announced the creation of ACS in 2020 and really has pushed this department forward and reshaped public safety within the city of Albuquerque. Mayor?
Thanks so much. Well, look, first and foremost, because we have a lot of people here, happy anniversary, ACS. You know, I look around this room and there's some folks who are, newer with the department. There's also folks who were here before it was even official. And I think this is probably by far and away the most important 2-year anniversary this city has ever had. And the thousands of people that this department has worked with can attest to that. And as we know too, I think this is a rare, I want to say rare occasion, but I mean that because it's that special. It's a rare occasion that not only is this a big deal for Albuquerque in New Mexico, this is a massive deal for America. This is the 2-year anniversary of a first of its kind, and until a couple of weeks ago, only of its kind, third alternative to emergency response in American cities. Now, we are going to hear, I think, from Durham, which is very exciting, right? So we're no longer the only one. And Mariella can speak more specifically to this, but I think also it was announced, was it just today or yesterday?
A couple days ago, Seattle.
So Seattle has now done the same thing, and they literally quoted us in all their material, which is just awesome and also a real sign of respect and of credibility for what you all have done. So this is one way in which Albuquerque is literally leading the nation in terms of alternative response. And so for us, we're grateful that you have all made this happen. This kind of thing does not happen without a whole lot of people. And I know especially, the 1-year anniversary, I think a lot of us can take a lot of credit for administratively on the back end. The 2-year anniversary is your anniversary because you're the ones who are actually making this work out in the field each and every day. So I want to begin my remarks really by also just taking us back 2 years to where we started. And we were in a couple of different places that sort of came together. And the first place was we were in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And we know that 2 years ago, we had challenges with respect to behavioral health, with respect to delays in our 911 responses. And all of the challenges, whether it's fentanyl, addiction, everything in between, mental health, that we've had for quite some time. Those were obviously there back in 2019. We also know that we were going through a tremendous transition as a country. We were going through COVID, and we were trying to grapple with how we actually deal with that. And then at that time, it was actually the summer of social justice and the murder of George Floyd. And we were all taking a step back and trying to understand, how do we actually respond to community? What does that look like? Who is it? When is it? What kind of expertise should those people have? And of course, in that discussion, it was primarily about police, but in general, right, it's about police and fire. That was the world 2 years ago. And that's the world predominantly in America. You call 911, you get police, you get fire. So for us, I remember literally that moment when we sort of felt that crucible of all that tension and all those things building up in our city, but also that spark of innovation. When we were sitting, I remember we were at a little triangle table in the mayor's office. Some of you seen it. It's memorable because it's shaped like a triangle. And we were sitting there and we were trying to think about, well, there are these amazing programs that we were sort of piloting. And many cities have this. All of you know about this, especially APD, right? Whether it was, and they had all these acronyms that I've already forgotten, but they were embedded responders, right? So embedded social workers with a police officer that would sort of go out on certain calls for like a couple of hours a day. Or we had different variations of this. We had the sort of civilian version, which was Coast, right? And I know we have some folks who came from Coast. And so this was like a throwback to the beginning of when we even had the consent decree, and we would just send civilians out, but they were sort of better equipped, and they were in a team, and they were specially trained to deal with down and outs and things of this nature. So we had these programs going. But when we really looked at it, there was a massive scale problem. These programs were able to help, maybe and I'm going to use generic round numbers, but let's say maybe 20 people a week. That is a good number for those 20 people. So I want to honor and I want to thank those pioneers who did this work and the people they were able to help for decades before we ever did ACS. And all around the country, folks who are doing that in almost every department, every police department or every city in America has programs like this now. That's a good thing. But then we thought about Albuquerque, my hometown, a town many of you have lived in for a long time or grown up in. And we know our problem has extra zeros after it, right? It's not 20, it's not 200, it's 2,000. And in fact, it's probably about 10,000 in general, the sort of general need for any kind of on-site services that are not coming from police and fire. So all of that came together. And then, a couple of folks started talking about, when EMTs were born. Believe it or not, depending on your parents, my parents are in their 80s, and so they barely remember this. There used to not be a EMT response in 911. It was just police, and it was a fire, like an actual apparatus to put out a fire. Somewhere along the 50s and 60s, we added that in. So we were talking about this, and then and then we were talking about the pilot programs and that kind of thing. It was like, hey, why don't we just do this as part of the 911 system? And it was that comment that really leapt the discussion forward very quickly. It was literally within 30 minutes we had mapped out this department. In fact, we almost had the name down within 30 minutes. I'm not mentioning that in any way to brag. I'm mentioning that because I think this is inevitable and important and urgent in America. The way we look at emergency response is totally antiquated. And fortunately, here in Albuquerque, first and foremost, look, the voters in many ways, when I ran for re-election, part of it was because of this department. They believe in this department and in this concept. And also the employees and city council who continually has funded this department. But we used emergency funding to get it started, and we said, look, now in Albuquerque, when you call 911, there's a third option. And that third option is our community safety department. It is trained folks who are the right response at the right time. They are much, much faster for lower priority calls than any other department, and you can actually provide the kind of help people need, including transport. Now, we know there's a long way to go. We know we're 24/7 now, but that obviously comes with challenges. Every shift is different, and ironically, those challenges are no different than APD and fire had when they build in 24/7 shifts too. We know that actually I encouraged and wanted this department to be unionized because we want it to stick and we want you to have those important protections. That is also something very different than anywhere else. You never have administrations voluntarily saying, let's please unionize. But it's because it's that important and we want this to stay, right? This is going to be the second anniversary of what I believe are decades of how Albuquerque is going to lead the way for emergency response. So anytime you start something like this and you're 2 years in, yes, there's all sorts of things we got to work in. And anytime you do something that is literally the first of its kind, the most innovative response in the entire country, there are also going to be challenges. But there are also going to be lives that are saved and lives that are impacted. And that's why I want to end with really, at a high level, some basic statistics you have all heard. At the end of the day, we know this, because this department is run very well from the top. It has a great director. And so actually that's a good point here. You know, there's a lot of people who I could thank, and I know I'm going on a long time, but that's because this is a big deal. And so there are a couple that I do want to highlight, and one of them is your director. There is no way this department would exist without Mariela Ruiz Angel, period. Let's all give her a round of applause. And, you know, she and I occasionally get to go all over the country and talk about this department. And the first thing I tell them is they can't hire Mariela. Because that is the first question they all ask me. But also, you know, I do want to mention this, the violence intervention program is part of this department too. And that has been a wonderful merging. Again, it used to live in different departments, But we've seen that part of community response is also a deep intervention with families and also with high schools. And I was able to visit the program out at West Mesa High School just last week. And I will tell you, if you ever doubt the impact you're having, go to a high school VIP program and you look at these 14-year-olds and what they're dealing with, and you realize we are the only people in their lives, in addition actually to APS and their teachers, because they're an important part of this. We are the only people left in their lives providing a path out. And that could be psychological, that can be physical with help and support services. Sometimes it's also just personal because they have no one else to go to. And so that is also an important part of the Community Safety Department. But where we are today after 2 years, look, with the official numbers are all there. We've got roughly 100 responders. We are operating 24/7. And in general, we've taken about 46,000 calls. And about half of those, 23,000, are calls that police did not have to take and that fire did not have to take. So you see the ripple effects of this department. It has actually increased our response, or decreased our response time in low priority APD calls by about an hour for priority 5 and priority 4 because they're not taking all those calls. Conversely, right, those individuals, we believe, are getting hopefully some help, some offer of assistance that they need, that APD and fire could have never have provided. So you see this working at both ends of this issue. And so for us, it's a question of just how can we continue to scale, how can we continue to improve, because we believe this is literally it's a shining star in Albuquerque and all across the country. And the proof is that cities like Seattle and Durham are also giving it a shot. So when we're here for our 20th anniversary, I want to make you a bet. Every city in America will have this. It's just a bet. Might not happen. But I believe when you think about the concept of emergency response, if we honor the idea of the right response from the right person at the right time, it's never going to happen without a third department. And so with that, I also want to thank APD and fire. The other thing I tell people, they're always like, well, I don't know in our town. I don't know if fire would be okay with it. I don't know if dispatch can do it. I don't know if AP, that's what people say. And I want to emphasize, especially if folks hear this from other cities, the minute we started taking calls, police and fire believed, because they understand those are calls that you're better equipped to take than them, and that they need to take other calls that they are better equipped than you to take. That is also what I think is going to drive this in other cities all across America, and all for the better, because we need this in all our cities, and we need to continue it right here in Albuquerque. So thank you so much, and happy anniversary.
Next, we'll hear from our director, our leader who shaped this department, Director Mariela Ruiz-Angel.
Oh my God, 2 years, it feels, I don't know, maybe it feels like 20 already, Mary. But I want to start today because, yes, maybe we was me and like a couple others that were here when we first started this, but there's been a team. There's been a major team. Yes, our first year, we've had some amazing partners. Fire and police were in it with us. They were helping us figure it out. And then really, as we've gone into second year, this has been about our first responders. This is about our boots on the street. And I see so many of you out here today joining us. And for those that couldn't be here because they are literally out in the field working, my thanks is to all of you. We could not be here without the dedication to service of our community, to the dedication of keeping our community safe, mentally, physically, emotionally. That's what this is about. So I will start off by just thanking everybody who's doing this work for us, for the city, and mostly for our community. All of you have a passion, and all of you that work for ACS, I know have a story of it was me, a story of it was my mom, a story of it's my community, and we all are here to make this community and leave it in a better place than we found it. So I'll start with that. I also want to remind everybody that when we created this department, it has always been community-led, right? We have always, I think all of us go back to our community. Every time we lose that focus, every time we were a little bit worried that we might be straying too far off course, it's always been community-led. And that's what we really push to other cities who are looking at this. So with that, I do also want to make sure that the community members here, Enrique and Casey, and so many of you who have been here as support, like this could not be without your advocacy and your push to make this a reality. Now, we also know that when creating a new department, or even the public safety department, it takes time. This was a systemic change that our administration, Mayor Keller, was like, I remember when we were like, yeah, it's gonna be a good department. It's like, stop calling it a pilot. This is a new department. We're jumping in with both feet. No more pilots. We're done. And I was all right, cool. Like, we're gonna go in with this. And that's what we've done. We did not let this turn into something that could be torn down. And that is leadership. Leadership with our mayor, leadership with all of our administration, and leadership from all of our department directors who were like, we're gonna be one Albuquerque and really push this. So with that said, let's get into some numbers, because that's what really matters today, is how are we making that difference? So we begin with a quick little snapshot, and I'll start, even though we launched in September for our 2-year, I will say that February of 2022 was like the month that we were like, oh, this is actually working. Like we're getting calls from APD. We're seeing where this is, making some changes. And then ultimately here we are, September of 2023, and 2 years, and we've taken over 3,300 calls just this month. This month alone has been the largest. I'm going to tell you, like I was talking to Casey walking in, and I said, I'm going to be real honest, I didn't think we'd ever get here this fast. Like, in my own personal opinion, knowing the obstacles and the issues and all the challenges that we have in creating new departments, especially in a government, I didn't think we'd ever hit 3,300 calls. So now we have a new goal. So we'll hit that 4,000 mark sooner than we thought. But it's the proof, right? This is that we've now created something that is not just wanted, which is where we started, but absolutely needed. We're really seeing that those numbers, right? So that is we're seeing great calls, and I will say that as of this month, 5% of APD calls have been diverted from police. So the impact is huge. We're seeing that police can take those higher calls that they really need to be at and spend less time doing some of that work that really for them, it's just a lot. It's taken away from theirs. We know what that's like now too when we're in the situations, and so sometimes it's a nice feeling to say police can go on to the calls that we want. They are going to create that safety in our community, and now we can really take on the other pieces. So we'll go to the next slide. So just to also kind of elaborate, so in our first year of service, so last year, we took 16,000 calls for service. This also was still more than we predicted. We thought maybe 10,000. So 16,000 calls. And now in our second year of service, we have nearly doubled that capacity. And we're not even in the full, right? This is full year. So an 88% increase in yearly calls for service. Why, you ask? Because our administration, our city councilors, and our community fought for more responders. We only started with 5 people first. I mean, I remember that day like it was yesterday. And then slowly we became 10, and now we're about a little less than 100 people, boots on the street, running 24/7. And I will tell you, like, that's commitment. It's hard money, right? This isn't all grant funding. It's not some, pilot money. This is money that is committed from our general funds that goes to this department. Again, this is the commitment. And I will say, we are also hitting the hardest parts of our city. We know that calls for service across the city is important, but some of these areas that we know are getting hit hard, downtown, international district, those are the areas we really want to concentrate on. And so we're seeing that those numbers are going up in those areas in which we're able to go to those calls. Next slide. So taking more 911 calls. One of the things that we saw when we originally started, and I will tell you, I tell cities this all the time. When we first started, APD said, you can take our 4s and our 5s and low priority calls, and that'll work. And we were happy with that. We were like, we'll take whatever. Let's just get this going. We are now starting to see that in partnership with police and fire, we are going to higher types of calls, higher acuity calls. And what that means for us as a definition is that it's less about the minor crisis and more about the big crisis, right? The person who is suicidal, the person who's in high acute situations. We've always known that responders could go out to these calls, and now we're really proving that we can de-escalate that person, and that ultimately it saves it from potentially a bad situation happening at that moment or even down the road. So we are seeing that 57% more of our ACS calls are higher priority, and we are seeing that most of those calls are taken by our behavioral health responders, which is one of the biggest parts of our department. We also had created our community responders and our street outreach responders. And so that's going to be a big piece that we grow this over this next year to really make sure that we are being able to take some of the burden off our behavioral health responders and divert them into the right places, right? These are experts that work in people who are unsheltered. It's really about making sure that even within our own department, it really is around the right response at the right time. So I do want to say we are re-strategizing our street outreach. Stay tuned. We've got some amazing staff. Welcome, Jody Jeffson. And so we're really excited about that. So the last slide is really about just driving it home. So as we continue to diversify, we are almost at our hiring goal, which is amazing. We never really thought we'd get there, and I don't think a lot of people did either, but we are. We are finalizing our hiring over the next few months, and that really means that we can put more people out on the street. So we did go 24/7 this last month. It was a huge missing piece of the puzzle, and although, yes, are we feeling the impact of stretching and responders feeling that, like, man, I really need to get to that next call? Absolutely. Just like any department when they're trying to grow, we have those growing pains. But look, I have heard more amazing stories from my graveyard responders and from the community who are like, and from our police who have been like, look, we didn't know you guys were out here, but this has been awesome. Like, this interaction and being able to meet that demand, working with our paramedics and our firefighters. We have like a little group of folks now working graveyard that have this kind of thing going on that we're still working out, but it's been really amazing to see that partnership and that team effort. So with the graveyard launching, we launched it August 26th, so we've literally just been about 4 weeks in. We've already taken over 1,200 calls for service, just in the graveyard hours. That's only 4 weeks of data, and that's amazing work. So again, continues to lessen the burden off of our police. We're seeing more transports to where people need to get transported, which lessens the burden off of our other first responders and fire and paramedics. And so far, number-wise, we've already saved about 2,500 hours that would have been towards police work if we had not been in Flourishing. So this is huge. This is ultimately those 2,500 hours, could have gone to instead pulling from police, and now we don't have to. Like, this is an amazing thing. We've literally been able to figure something out that's really special here. The last thing I will say as I wrap up is stay tuned. We're going to have a big party. Our new building is going to be open this spring. We are right down the street. It's going to be beautiful, and so we look forward to continuing our growth within this department. Being more, again, accessible and available in the community. We love our space here at the Gateway, but we also know that, like, there's such an opportunity for us to be in the heart of the International District and closer to our community in a way that's going to be really special. So look forward to seeing all of you guys again in the spring, where we will celebrate something else just as beautiful. So thank you all for being here, and I just want to really appreciate it really again.
Within ACS is our Division of Violence Prevention and Intervention. I now invite Deputy Director Jeffrey Bustamante to say a few words.
Thank you, everybody. A little bit taller here. So I'm Jeffrey Bustamante. I want to start with two main things: celebration and thanks. You know, anniversaries, birthdays, they're a celebration of life and of perpetuation, and these things continuing. And with that, I want to thank both the mayor but also our director for that strong support for what we do in our violence prevention work. ACS this year launched this division of violence prevention and intervention, bringing multiple programs together to really interrupt cycles of violence and addiction within our community. And we are reminded far too often that these programs are needed. Right now, we have a handful of programs which are really exciting and doing awesome work in the community. You see some of that information up here with our violence intervention program and our school-based violence intervention program. The SBVIP is out at West Mesa and interacting directly with those kids, and you heard some of that already. We also have our community-oriented response and activities, sorry about that, also known as CORA, and we finally have our opioid education and prevention program. Each of these programs, as I mentioned, is seeing the need in the community, and each is seeing growth over the last year. But we're not hiding from that work, and we are definitely trying to take it head on to support the community, and so we're seeing continued growth. Thankful to the Department of Justice for a $2 million grant that was recently awarded to really expand this work and make sure that we are supporting Albuquerque as it needs. But also we have a handful of new peers on the team who are helping out today. We have more growth in every single program because we see Albuquerque needs it, and we're seeing that the city can take it head on, and it wouldn't be possible if not for both the strong leadership from the mayor and from our director, but also from the team. And so I want to give a shout out to all of those individuals who make this all possible, because like I said, we're seeing every day sometimes that the need is there, but the city is ready to meet it head on, and it's a matter of pride and privilege to be here and celebrate that and be ready to take up the work. And then finally, actually I think that's it. So thank you very much.
At ACS, we have a close relationship with our public safety partners at APD and AFR. To talk about this important relationship, Albuquerque Rescue Fire Chief Emily Jaramillo.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. I just want to congratulate everybody, first of all, for your two-year anniversary. And on behalf of the fire department, thank Mayor Keller for creating the department. And also to Director Ruiz Angel, on behalf of our department, I can attest to how difficult it is to run a department, but Mariela not only runs a department, she created a department, which is a lot. So, good job. I just have a couple of minutes, and I want to just focus on thanking the people involved with ACS. One of the things that our department does is we provide a lot of the training to new responders. So there's a lot of familiar faces to me out in the audience, whether I've trained you or I've worked with you from other agencies. And when I promoted to chief, my staff asked who would take my place training the ACS responders, and I said nobody. It's really important to me to show the new responders how important your department is to the fire department. As a responder in my past life in the department, there were a lot of calls that I was on where, yes, I was a paramedic and I had worked in the system for a long time, but I didn't have the training to really deal with this situation. And so having all of you in this department assisting first responders, police, and fire on those calls is not only important to our departments, but also to the public that we serve, that we are providing the right resources out in our community. We know that our community needs a lot of resources, and having this third branch of public safety is very, very important as those specialists get out and help with those needs in the public. So again, I just want to thank all of you and congratulate you on your 2-year anniversary. We look forward to many more years of continuing to work with you all, and we will see you out there. So thank you.
United States Attorney Alexander Ubayas has been a strong supporter of ACS and our violence intervention program. We would invite you to say a few words.
Good morning, and thank you all. I am an early adopter of this program. I remember back, I think it was 2019 or so, when it was just me, Angel, Jerry, and Luke. At that time, I was a line AUSA in my office. I was just a regular line prosecutor. And I was asked by my office to figure out ways in which we can confront gun violence. And so the solutions that I found were solutions already found by the city. The mayor, and all credit goes to the hard work done by the mayor, his staff, the city council in investing in this idea. on the front end. And so the thing that I've learned since becoming the United States Attorney, since becoming the person who sits in the seat and stepping away from the line and doing the work, right, is it's super easy to come up with the idea. It's super easy to be the guy to be like, hey, that makes a ton of sense. We should do that. The hard work is put in by you. The hard work is put in by the people of this department, of APD, of everyone in the city who's invested in it. That's the most amazing thing here, right? I now, as the principal for my agency, I have 200 employees, I have lots of ideas, I tell them to go do it, and they do it well. That's what you are all doing here. This is groundbreaking. What the mayor said to begin this is truly inspirational for me, because remember, you're doing this for you, you're doing this for the people who sit next to you, you're doing this for our community, but you're doing it for the whole nation. The whole nation is looking at you, right? You have their attention. What is happening here is groundbreaking. How you conduct this business, how you work with each other, how you build this department and serve this community will echo throughout the nation for years. And what an incredible, incredible opportunity. And so I'm just so proud to be here with each of you today. I'm so proud of the work that each of you are doing. I'm so happy for our community that we have dedicated public servants like you. I want you to know the Department of Justice is here to support you. This has been one of our priorities from this administration since the beginning, one of mine since before this administration, which is investing in these types of approaches. Approaches that recognize that we are better together and that none of us can do it alone. That policing by itself doesn't work, that incarceration by itself doesn't work, and in fact, social services by themselves doesn't work. What we need to do is marry all of these things together. What we need to do is with Albuquerque Fire, with Albuquerque Police, with the Department of Justice and their federal entities, with all of you most importantly, marry these things together. Serve our community holistically. Realize that everybody is better than the worst thing that they've ever done. And that we all have opportunities to turn ourselves around and turn our communities around. And I think, and so when I talk to my prosecutors and in the legal field, there's a huge amount of cognitive dissonance because lawyers often, their job is to serve a single client, a single entity, and their interests above all else. I think it causes a lot of trouble for lawyers. I think that's why lawyers suffer from high levels of depression and substance abuse, because it is not natural for us as humans to think about one person and one entity, one business's interest above everyone else's. We're meant to care about each other. And so we are better when we are together, and none of us can do this alone. You are the nexus here of public safety for Albuquerque. You are the thing that brings together all of these interests and entities. You are the ones in the streets talking to the people who will be the next people in these seats talking to the next people. And I'm so proud to be here with you. Congratulations, happy birthday. I'll be here for whatever you need. But most of all, thank you. Thank you all so much.
Well, it's important to note that our department is not doing this work in silo. There are many, as the mayor mentioned earlier, there are many cities using ACS as their blueprint and inspiration when creating their own community safety department. This includes Durham, North Carolina. Director of Durham Community Safety, Ryan Smith, sent us a brief message, so that'll be playing over here on the monitor. Possibly. We'll circle back to that. Following the announcement of ACS in 2020, a planning committee was formed. This committee was made up of community members from across the metro. They informed on every decision that was made leading up to our launch. On that committee, Casey Quirk, who works for the New Mexico Law Office of the Public Defender. Casey?
Thank you. Boy, so many things that I was going to say have already been said, but I do want to say congratulations and happy birthday. If this was a human birthday, this would be a toddler, but I think that you guys have exceeded the toddler period. Somehow you have the accelerated thing going on as a program. But you know, it was 2000. And actually, long before that, Albuquerque, we know we had our own George Floyd named James Boyd, right? And there was a lot of activity that happened around the loss of that person's life. And I think a lot of us in the community who are doing anti-violence work, who are doing working with people who've been incarcerated, working with people who are homeless, became very concerned about what we were going to do. And so I think there was the seeds and the momentum was already going. And then, unfortunately, George Floyd was murdered and the entire country was taken aback. And it was not because this was new, it was because this was on film. And it was undeniable. It was irrefutable evidence, right? And the mayor did what a lot of people around the country did, is he stepped up and said, we're gonna create a new initiative. But I bet if we looked around at all of the government officials who said that they were gonna start a new initiative when George Floyd was murdered, a lot of those initiatives are not still in place. But this one has been. But I wanna go back to the beginning because for the communities that wanna start this, I've been in human services 40 years now, and I don't know, I know I don't look like it, but I have. And one of the things that hurts the most is when somebody gets a great idea and they just launch into it without all the necessary steps. And one of the things that Director Ruiz Angel did that was so remarkable is she got boots on the ground and went out and she talked to everybody who would listen. She was knocking on doors of coalitions, she was knocking on doors of nonprofits, she was talking to people on the streets, she was talking to government officials. She was gathering all the information needed to understand, what does this community really need? What do they want? She was hearing the stories of what's happened to our family, our friends, our other loved ones, our coworkers in some cases. And she took all of that information into the planning for this department. That, I'm going to say, sounds like, oh yeah, that's a given, right? We all do that. We should all talk to the community about what they need. That doesn't happen. More often than not, that's not what happens. But your director, who's also a social worker, just have to say, and clearly a community organizer, saw that that was the way that we needed to go, and she did that. I happened to be part of a little group back then, I still am, it's called the Coalition for a Safer ABQ, and actually, originally we were called Albuquerque Community Safety.
Really? Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we changed our name to Coalition for a Safer ABQ, and I'm going to be honest, we stayed on it. We stayed on Mariela, we stayed on the mayor, we stayed on everybody because we saw, and I knew, because I come from a background of doing street-based work in Detroit, that what Mariela was putting together was going to be the thing that could make the biggest difference. And I've been in New Mexico since 1999, and this is without a doubt the most impactful and innovative project I've seen the entire time I've been here, and it's in our own city, City of Albuquerque. So I just want to give a lot of head nods. I want to give a head nod to Angel and VIP because you guys are making a difference in the lives of young people. ACS has expanded so large. It used to be I could talk about it, oh yeah, they're out in the street, you always see the ACS cars out, which warms my heart. But now they're so big. They're now bringing in more homeless services under the direction of Jody Jepson, who's amazing and familiar to many people who've done street-based work in this community. So I am looking forward to every 2 years seeing your numbers double, quadruple in the ways that I think they're going to. And eventually, hopefully, our numbers are going to start declining, right? Because when you do this work, what we're really trying to do is work ourselves out of a job, right? We don't want to be having to continue to pick up pieces and see people in the level of despair and dismay that they are. We know that there's a lot more that needs to happen in our community too. We lack resources. ACS is out there, but some people need to get someplace. They need to get someplace for help. And so we still need to build that infrastructure up in our community to make sure that once we have people who are ready to get the help, we have a place to get them to. But honestly, this is one of the most beautiful programs that I've seen happen in a long time. And it's true, Mariela built it. I know you had a lot of people around you, and some people were just flatly telling you what to do. I won't name any names, but they were. But you did. I feel uncomfortable with my back to her because, she's the director, and to the mayor, so I just keep shifting. But I just want to thank you so much for hanging in there, Mariela. I know it wasn't easy. You've had to manage not only the community as a system, but also the political system of the city of Albuquerque. There's lots of pressures coming at you from all angles, and you did it. I mean, you've done it, sister, and I am so proud to call you my sister social worker and my sister in the fight to help make things better for our most vulnerable community members. Thank you all, and congratulations for all of you that work in this. I love you. My heart's with you.
All right, we'll give the video another shot.
Greetings from the City of Durham. Brian Smith, Director of the City of Durham's Community Safety Department. With the HEART program, we want to wish you a happy anniversary, 2 years of operation. What an accomplishment. We're so proud of you. We're proud to be a part of the community you're helping build across this country. I remember when we were getting started 2 years ago, just in the planning stages, Mariella was one of the very first people I reached out to. We know how hard it is to build a public safety agency from the ground up like you're doing. The type of training and imagining and actually making it happen for all the amazing people that it takes, all the people who are doing the work on the ground every day. Cities like Durham follow your lead and create our own community safety department. And I'm excited for what the future holds. And we just applaud and congratulate you on 2 years and look forward to the next 20 and doing this work together. Happy anniversary.
And we have one more speaker, Enrique Cardiel with the Health Equity Council.
Buenos días, le de Dios a todos. This is very important and heartwarming for me. I've been a public health worker for over 20 years now, and for the majority of that time, the public health community has saying we need an alternative to police response. And so to see this be real, to see it on the ground and happening is very important. Very emotional and very satisfying, right? I believe that this will be one of the mayor's most important legacies at his time as mayor, more so than, I don't know. If I say anything else, it'll sound like I'm talking crap about his other projects. So I'll just stick with, I believe this will be one of his most important legacies. It also shows, right, in the period now that it's expanded and become more recognized, that call times take longer, right? That it's harder to reach ACS, it's harder to get ACS out. And one way people will move with that is like, use it as an excuse to try to get rid of ACS, and we know that that's there. But reality, what it shows is that we need to invest more into ACS, right? We need to make it so that response time is less than an hour, right? The folks who wish ACS didn't exist also wish the folks that they were going out to treat were not visible. They kind of don't care whether they exist or not, to be honest, but they just don't want to see them, right? And for me, it's heartwarming. I live in the International District. I live where there used to be a 24-hour all subs, and I've seen ACS vehicles on my street, and to me that's heartwarming, right? Because I know what they're doing. You know, I've been supportive of ACS from the beginning. The Health Equity Council has provided some trainings, some support. We're solid with ACS. We want this to continue to grow. The violence intervention projects, we want that to grow. All of this is important, right? Until we make a full, dedicated commitment as a community and a society to make sure everybody's housed, everybody has access to physical health care, mental health care, until we make that commitment as a community, as a society, right, ACS is vitally important. And they'll still be important as we move in that direction, right? Because there will take us a while to get all that figured out. But until that happens, Albuquerque will be worse off without ACS. And we're better off with it here. And I'm proud to have been a supporter from the beginning and to continue to be a supporter and to continue to try to work with ACS the best we can as the Health Council, and for me as a community member, to make sure that this flourishes. And I will take the mayor's bet for $100, right? The bet he proposed earlier. So I'm putting $100 up on the mayor. In 20 years, right, we come back and we'll be here at this anniversary. So thank you, Mariela. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you all so much for being here. With that, there's cookie or there's punch over here, some water. Feel free to grab them. Media will get your questions here in a moment. Okay. Thank you.